Well, the mad lads over at Delta did it. They released a retro gaming emulator for the iPhone, and it's been up and downloadable for longer than like a day now, so I feel like it might actually stick this time. But before we get into all this fun gaming, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, iFixit. So I recently got back from a week-long work trip where I used this as my free time hobby while comparing the iPhone for retro gaming to my favorite physical retro gaming console, the RG35XXH. So what's it like when your iPhone becomes a gaming console? First off, quick note, none of the companies or the products mentioned today are sponsoring this video, except for the obvious iFixit mentioned from earlier. I paid for the controllers, the products, the consoles, all of this out of my own pocket. Well, so Gary, how do you even retro game on the iPhone? Thanks for asking, imaginary voice I made up for the script. Step 1, you download the Delta app from the App Store. It's free, so hooray. That makes it even easier to recommend that you at least go try it out. According to the App Store, this can support NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Color, and a whole host of other types of games. It has a wide variety of controller support, more on this later, and it does pretty much everything standard game emulators have been doing since I was a much younger person. Getting it ready to go is pretty easy. You open the app, hit the plus icon in the upper right hand corner, and point it to where your ROMs are located, hit the open, and boom, it's ready to go. You can customize controllers, change controller skins, and other options from the menu system. Compared to the RG35XXH for setup, it's actually way easier. And that's considering that the H is already very easy to set up. Unlike the RG though, you will need your own ROMs for the app. It doesn't come with them like the Anbernic machine. So after almost a week of playing around with this, what have I liked about using my phone as a retro gaming console? And would I personally recommend this or swap to this instead of using a dedicated device? Those are the important questions we need to ask today. Well, let's start off with the things I've liked. 1, I like the price. I've already got an iPhone, and most iPhone users you would already have an iPhone to be an iPhone user, right? That's how Gary, what are you even talking about? There is zero cost of entry. That's pretty great. You don't have to pay for an expensive app. If you have an iPhone, you can get going. I like free stuff. After my struggles, and yes, it was a 100% me problem, of setting up and getting the Retroid Pocket 2S running, it was nice to just be tap and go. I didn't have to set up file structures. I didn't have to learn new programs. It was very easy, right? I think I've said simple and easy way too many times in this video so far, so we're not gonna belabor the point too much, but friction in tech, friction in gaming, just friction in my gear is a big no-no for me, and being able to figure this out within seconds of starting scores big points in my recommendation criteria. The next thing I've liked is the performance. This shouldn't be too surprising, right? Compared to the Anbernic or compared to the Retroid Pocket, my iPhone 15 Pro Max has a supercomputer-esque type processor inside of it. It's supposed to be able to handle certain AAA games, right? I've seen that Resident Evil Village ad and that demonstration like 4 or 5 times at this point. If the iPhone can handle that, handling and yes, this actually hurts to say, an almost 30-year-old game, it's no sweat for this amount of graphical processing power. It is really kind of hard to compare other retro consoles to this just because of that gulf of difference in CPUs and GPUs. But that gulf isn't as big of a deal when you talk retro gaming. You don't need that much power to run these older games. So I think at some point, depending on the generation you are trying to emulate, you will hit that sweet spot where you probably need more power. I'm pretty content in the SNES, N64, PS1 era, which works pretty well on all of these consoles that I've tried so far. Thanks again to iFixit for sponsoring this video. You can learn how to fix just about anything at ifixit.com. Search through thousands of free repair guides and find the high-quality parts and precision tools to fix your phones, laptops, game consoles, and so much more. Let's say you are trying to keep your current gen or even older gen consoles going. Well, thankfully, iFixit has the tools and the guides to help you through just that. Even if you are getting to be as old as me and you're trying to keep your Super Nintendo alive, iFixit has you covered with easy step-by-step guides. And it's pretty awesome, but the first 100 users to use code EVERYDAYFIX after clicking the link below get $10 off orders $50 or more. So go ahead, click below and find your fix today. One thing though that has blown the other consoles out of the water, and something that I haven't liked but I've loved, is the audio quality. The iPhones, especially my Pro Max, have some of the best audio quality that you'll find in mobile tech. Straight up, it's real good, and finally being able to listen to my game audio at whatever level I want without needing headphones is fantastic. Everything sounds So good. It was the first thing that was even the first thing I noticed trying this out over the past week. It's crisp, it's clear, it's better than my nostalgia remembers these games sounding. And that's a feat, because if you haven't yet hit your 40s, you may not realize this, but the older you get, the stronger a hold nostalgia has on your brain. So competing and winning there is a very big plus to Delta and retro gaming on the iPhone as a whole. Even the best gaming console I've tried so far, the Retroid Pocket 2S, I mean, it sounds fine, but it's only fine. Like, it doesn't bother me. Audio quality is okay, but it can always be better. The Anbernix, and especially, check this out, the Anbernix, and specifically the Game Boy shaped Anbernix, they sound awful. And it's so bad. I think this is like my 4th video that I've mentioned it. It's scratchy, it's distorted. You have to keep it so low to not overwhelm this little fella right here that you can barely hear the audio. Okay, I'm not trying to push specific points too far, but you do not realize how important audio is until it's all messed up. Before we dive into the things that I haven't liked though, let's quickly take a second to talk about controller options. Now, there are a wide variety of Bluetooth, plug-in collapsible, all sorts of controllers that you could use here. The one that I used for the majority of the week is the USB-C backbone. You simply open it up, pop your phone in, and now you've got physical controls. The controller does want you to download an app to use it, which I don't really like, but besides that, it does what it's designed and it looks like it should do. Now, this isn't a review or a video about the backbone, so I'm going to try to stick with how the physical controller interfaced with Delta and gaming on the phone as a whole instead of this, because compared to the RG35XXH, these buttons, they're pretty rough. They're not tactile enough. They're kind of mushy. Listen to that. There's not enough buttons to properly map to the SNES and use the menus of the emulator at the same time. Just, ugh. When you've got a controller loaded, the virtual keyboard automatically goes away and you just have the game screen, which is very nice. You can customize the inputs and the button mapping in the same menu where we loaded the games earlier, and much like loading games, the ease of setting up a controller is pretty great. And I've been kind of negative about this, and I was going to be negative about extending, telescoping, the controllers where you put your phone in. But then I decided to try one more, and then the other day I bought a Gamesir G8, which again, not a controller review, but I did enjoy this so much more. This is such a better controller, and I would absolutely recommend this over the backbone. Listen to these buttons. Oh, I love good feeling and sounding buttons. But okay, let's move over to the things that I haven't liked about gaming on the iPhone. When it comes to the Delta emulator itself, I have zero negative things to say. It's hard to complain about a piece of free software. And honestly, I don't have that many problems overall when we specifically talk about iPhone gaming. The issues that we'll bring up are their problems on all cell phone run emulators. But first off, man, do I hate virtual controllers. I've hated them since smartphones started, and I wanted to emulate games way back on my Motorola Droid. That was okay because it had a physical flip up keyboard, but I hate. I capped myself at 4 hates for this video. I hate playing games on touchscreens. Maybe that was because I was born 2 years before the NES came out and I've spent most of my life using physical buttons. My brain just will not accept playing games tapping on a screen unless it's like Angry Birds, right, where it's designed to be a touchscreen. If it wasn't designed for touchscreen, I just can't make it work. The second thing I didn't like about retro gaming on my iPhone was trying to aircast or airplay the game on my TV, and it sounds like such a natural idea. You've got this controller attached to your phone, just cast it to your TV, and you've essentially got a wireless gaming rig just in your pocket. For me, it didn't work well enough. The image quality and the sound quality were fantastic. It just sounded like I was straight up playing on Nintendo 64 from my TV. It was great. But there was a noticeable lag between button press and then action happening on the screen, and sometimes, especially in more action-intense moments, it would lag and it would slow way down. Now this part, it's actually pretty heartbreaking, because this right here has the potential to revolutionize my home gaming setup. That's not hyperbole. I keep a majority of the systems. You've seen my setup over there. I keep the majority of those systems over there to play my retro games. If somebody knows how to get this working seamlessly, please let me know in the comments below. If I could just have this and then that's all I need for my TV, that would be so awesome. We've talked about what I've liked. We've talked about what I dislike. Now that we can emulate retro gamings on the iPhone, would I say stick here, or would I recommend buying a dedicated device? Okay, that takes a nuanced answer, so stick with me here. Free apps are free apps. So if you don't have any money to invest, well, Free is just straight up gonna win out. Personally though, the only way I will play these old games is with some kind of physical control. So you'd have to at least buy a dedicated Bluetooth controller for your phone, and now you're carrying around 2 devices anyway. And if you buy one of these controller cases that we talked about today, these are either as expensive or more expensive depending on which one you get, and the deals you can get on the RG, it's either more or as expensive as this anyway. So in the scenario where you have the money to spend and you are looking to emulate old games, I would buy a Retroid Pocket 2S or an RG35XXH instead of going iPhone and controller. It's just better overall. But if you are looking for higher end emulation and you don't want to spend the money on a higher end emulation console because those can get very pricey very quick, then yeah, get the extended controller and use your iPhone. It didn't work that bad, and it actually worked better than I thought it would, and I've had a blast over the last week testing it out. But what about you? Have you tried gaming on the iPhone yourself? What do you think? Let us all know in the comments below, and click here to see my whole playlist around retro gaming consoles. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.